Compared to the NES, which had about a dozen different console bundles, the Super Nintendo took a much more simplistic approach, really only having 3 main variations. Those would be the control set, which just included the console and a single controller with no pack in-game. The Super set, which included the console, 2 controllers, and the Super Mario World cartridge packed in. And the control deck. Yes, that's right, they called one the control set, and then you have the control deck set. Just to make things super confusing, Nintendo had some sort of massive obsession with control back in the day. But this was the redesigned, smaller Super Nintendo console, and it included a single controller. It does get a little more complicated than that, however, as in addition to these 3 different box sets, unlike with the NES where if Nintendo decided they wanted to include a game with a console, they would redesign an entirely new bundle themed around it, such as with the Challenge set for the NES, which included Super Mario Bros. 3. For the Super Nintendo, if they wanted to include a game that was not Mario World, since that was already coming with the Super set, they would just slap a sticker onto the box, and that would be how they made their new bundles. So you've got stickers for Super Mario All-Stars, stickers for The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, stickers for Yoshi's Island, stickers for Super Mario Kart. Donkey Kong Country is like one weird exception where it actually got its own themed Donkey Kong Country box set. Even though the console is no different, it just includes the Donkey Kong Country cartridge in there. But for the most part, these 3 sets, the control set, the Super set, and the control deck, were the main 3 Super Nintendo bundles that you would see. There is one other Super Nintendo boxed bundle though that we should touch on here, and is actually going to lead into a much more interesting topic that is the true theme of this video, and that is the very first Super Nintendo bundle ever released in North America. See, originally, the only way to get your hands on an SNES was if you bought the bundle with 2 controllers that included Super Mario World, and as we've already touched on, that would become known as the Super Set. But when that bundle was first released, it had no special name. That was just the Super Nintendo as it came, take it or leave it. And that makes this rather plain box particularly interesting, because the only way you really know what you're getting in here is based on that photo on the front. Speaking of which, let's take a look at that photo for a second. So we have the 2 controllers there, fair enough, I mentioned that those are what came in it. You have the Super Nintendo console, but if we look at the back of it, we will see that the Nintendo logo, which is normally engraved into the console, is now actually jutting up out of it, which is rather strange. And then if we look at the Super Mario World cartridge depicted here, you will notice that along the top of the label, Super Mario World is depicted graphically, where on the retail release of Super Mario World is always in green, plain text. Now there were variations of the Super Mario World cartridge over the years, and you'll notice that on the front, earlier releases of Super Mario World have the more sturdy, flat design, where the later releases have that more curved front. Now the reason for this is because when you push the power switch forward on your Super Nintendo, earlier models of the console will have a plastic piece that sticks out inside and connects with the hole on the front of the cartridge. This was to prevent the cartridge from accidentally being pulled out while the console was turned on. The problem with this, however, was that if you really gave it a lot of force, like you didn't care that you were in the middle of Mario World and you were going to lose that save data or whatever, you just wanted to rip that cartridge out regardless, you could do some serious damage to the console. Later cartridges were designed to have more of a curved front so that even if the cartridge was pulled out while that power switch and plastic piece were forward, it would not cause any damage. Later versions of the Super Nintendo would just remove this plastic locking piece altogether to completely prevent any such accidents from happening. And of course, once the Super Nintendo Mini came out, this piece was also completely gone, so no more issues like this would occur. I even have a single Super Mario World cartridge where Yoshi's feet on the front are somehow behind the black border that surrounds the cover art, unlike in front of it, as he is on all of my other carts. Like, how does a variant like that even happen? However, despite all the different cartridges I have looked at over so many years, I have never seen a single one that had a graphical depiction of the Super Mario World title along the top. So just what is up with the depiction of the cartridge on the front of the box then? If we take a closer look at the cartridge, we will see at the bottom of it that there are actually no security bits, as there should be on the front of a real Super Nintendo cart. The art of Mario and Yoshi on the label also looks very primitive, perhaps an early sketch that would then be touched up on the computer. This can lead us to conclude that this was perhaps not actually a real Super Nintendo cartridge at all, and yet just an early prototype piece just assembled to display what it might look like to have a finished Super Nintendo cartridge. For the Super Nintendo as well, the fact that that Nintendo logo on the back sticks out rather than being pushed in, this could possibly be the plastic that was used to create the mold, which would then be used to produce official retail Super Nintendo consoles. So what you're looking at when you look at this box is not what you would actually be getting inside, but the prototype items that were used during the development of the North American Super Nintendo. And that is just really cool, while at the same time also being kind of a lie to those who may have been buying it back in the day, where most people, will be honest, probably didn't even notice. But when I saw this on the front of the box, it immediately caught my attention. And I always wondered if there was a Super Mario World cartridge out there that looked like the depiction we saw here. Because I personally really like how the Super Mario World title looks along the top there, and I think it's unfortunate that there are many Super Nintendo games which just have those basic text titles on the side. I like the NES where every label is colorful, every label has its own kind of characteristics to it. But I know that there are those who will disagree and who also probably like the PlayStation 2 in regions outside of North America, for example, where the labels are all just white with black text on them. Everyone's gonna have their different preferences, and that's totally cool. But in this case here, I hope I was able to introduce something a little bit interesting and new to you. And hey, if you've ever seen a cartridge like that that's hanging around out there somewhere, maybe you have the beta Super Mario World cartridge in your collection right now, and you didn't even realize it, be sure to let us know down below. And just overall post your thoughts down there. And hey, if you like and comment on the video, maybe it will blow up enough that Miyamoto will show up and explain to us just what was going on. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed hearing about this and hope to see you next time for something different. So thanks and take care, everyone.